Imagine waking up one day with a quiet but unsettling realization that the life you have been living is not truly your own, that the choices you made, the beliefs you defend, even the desires that push you forward, may not have originated within you at all. Instead, they were shaped by the expectations of your family, the conditioning of society, and the subtle pressures of the world around you. How much of your identity is a reflection of your authentic self, and how much of it is a carefully constructed mask? How often do you sense that you are not living but performing, that you are following a script written long before you had the chance to write your own? Carl Jung, the pioneer of depth psychology, believed that life does not truly begin until we find ourselves. But finding yourself is not as simple as gaining awareness or repeating affirmations. It is a transformative process that demands you strip away illusions and face the truths you have long ignored. From the moment we enter the world, we are conditioned. We are given names, roles, and definitions. We are told what is acceptable, what is rewarded, what must be hidden, and what will be punished. So gradual is this process that we rarely question it. We adapt, we conform, and we bury the parts of ourselves that don't align with external approval. Think back to your childhood. Did you ever speak freely only to be told to quiet down? Did you show sensitivity and hear, "Don't be so emotional"? Did you dream boldly only to be told, "Be realistic"? Each of these moments taught you to hide parts of yourself. Over time you built what Jung called the persona, the mask you wear for the world. The persona is not evil. It allows us to function, to navigate relationships, to play our part in society. But the danger comes when we mistake the mask for our true identity. The more we identify with the persona, the further we drift from the deeper self hidden beneath it. And what happens to the parts of us we push away? They do not disappear. They become the shadow, the hidden self made of suppressed fears, rejected desires, untapped strengths, and old wounds. The shadow operates quietly, influencing our behaviors, shaping our emotions, and distorting our relationships. Have you ever disliked someone instantly without understanding why? Or been triggered by a small behavior that seemed out of proportion to your reaction? Jung taught that these moments reveal projection. Often what disturbs us most in others is what remains unresolved within ourselves. This is where the paradox lies. The very parts of you that you suppress are not your enemies, but the missing pieces of your wholeness. The shadow is not something to eliminate but something to integrate. True growth, Jung insisted, is about bringing these denied aspects into consciousness, because in doing so we reclaim power, authenticity, and freedom. Philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said, "The greatest hazard of all, losing oneself, can occur very quietly in the world as if it were nothing at all." Most people live entire lives as strangers to themselves, suppressing what they are in order to fit a mold they never chose. They seek validation through approval and success, mistaking applause for fulfillment. Yet deep within there is always a quiet unrest, a whisper that something essential is missing. Nietzsche wrote, "Become who you are." This is not a call to invent a new self, but to uncover the one buried under years of conditioning, fear, and conformity. Because the truest version of you is not built by external expectations, but revealed when you dare to face yourself honestly. So pause and reflect. What have you been hiding? What aspects of yourself were locked away because they were inconvenient to others? What parts of you show up only in private, waiting for permission to exist in the light? The shadow is not there to destroy you. It is there to complete you. Every piece you reject holds a lesson, a strength, or a truth that belongs to you. And when you integrate what you once denied, you begin to feel whole. Not because you became someone new, but because you finally stopped abandoning yourself. Life does not begin when you meet the world's expectations. It begins when you turn inward and meet yourself. Most people go through life never truly facing themselves. They avoid silence, distract themselves with constant activity, and fill every empty moment with noise. But this avoidance is not random, it is protection. Because to face yourself fully is to uncover the parts you've hidden, the wounds you've buried, and the fears you've never admitted. Carl Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The shadow doesn't vanish simply because you ignore it. It continues to operate beneath the surface, shaping your choices and reactions in ways you do not realize. And as long as it remains hidden, it controls you. Think about the times you reacted more strongly than the situation required. The anger that flared too quickly, the jealousy that surprised you, the shame that lingered after a small mistake. These are not random emotions. They are signals from your shadow. From childhood we are taught to suppress parts of ourselves. You may have been told to stop crying when you felt pain, or to stop bragging when you felt proud. You may have learned that certain desires were selfish, certain emotions unacceptable, certain dreams unrealistic. Piece by piece you buried these parts in the dark. But what we repress does not disappear. It waits, hidden, until it bursts out in ways we cannot control. Nietzsche once wrote, "Man is something that shall be overcome." He was pointing toward the same truth Jung later explored, that growth requires confronting the parts of ourselves we would rather deny. It is not about rejecting them, but about transforming them. Consider fear of rejection. Many live their entire lives terrified of being judged, abandoned, or dismissed. They silence themselves in conversations, avoid conflict, and sacrifice authenticity for approval. But is this fear really about other people's opinions? Or does it trace back to an old wound, a childhood moment of being laughed at, ignored, or dismissed? The fear persists because it has never been faced. It lives in the shadow, and until it is brought into the light, it controls your behavior from the dark. Jung believed that our most painful fears often conceal hidden lessons. Self-doubt can carry humility and perspective. Anger can signal a need for justice or boundaries. Even envy can reveal what we secretly long for. The shadow is not only darkness, it also contains untapped strength and potential. Philosopher Soren Kierkegaard observed, "Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom." The discomfort we feel when confronting ourselves is the price of liberation. It feels frightening because it threatens the familiar, but it is also the doorway to transformation. So how do we begin to face the shadow without being consumed by it? Jung suggested we start by noticing patterns. Pay attention to what triggers you, to what qualities in others provoke strong reactions. Often these reveal what you have disowned in yourself. Keep a record of recurring dreams, stray thoughts, or deep emotions. They are messages from the unconscious waiting to be acknowledged. Silence and solitude are also essential. When you stop numbing yourself with distractions, the truth begins to surface. At first, it may feel overwhelming, but every moment of honest reflection loosens the shadow's grip. The simple act of asking, "What am I truly afraid of?" can begin to unravel years of hidden conditioning. Facing yourself will never be comfortable. It means questioning long-held beliefs, admitting fears, and acknowledging the conflict within. But avoidance only prolongs the pain. As Jung wrote, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And yet, the ones who dare to face it become the ones who find freedom. The shadow does not disappear overnight. It reveals itself in layers, each demanding honesty and courage. But with every part you face, you reclaim energy that was once trapped in fear, guilt, or shame. And slowly the mask begins to fall away, revealing a self that feels lighter, freer, more whole. The truth is simple but hard to accept. What we refuse to face in ourselves controls us the most. What we dare to face loses its power. And in that space, authenticity begins. If the shadow explains the hidden parts of our individual selves, archetypes explain something even greater. They are the universal patterns, the deep psychological blueprints that live within all of us. Carl Jung believed these archetypes are stored in what he called the collective unconscious, the layer of the psyche shared by humanity itself. These archetypes appear everywhere, in myths, in religions, in literature, and even in our dreams. The hero on a quest, the wise mentor, the innocent child, the shadowy villain. They are not just fictional characters. They are timeless images that reflect the forces within us. Jung wrote, "The archetype is a tendency to form representations of a motif, representations that can vary a great deal in detail without losing their basic pattern." In other words, archetypes adapt to each culture and each person's life, but the underlying form remains constant. They are the inner structures shaping how we think, feel, and act. Consider the hero archetype. It is the part of you that longs for purpose, that seeks to overcome challenges, and that strives to reach a higher version of yourself. But the hero never journeys alone. The shadow always stands in its path. In every myth, the hero must confront a monster or enemy before transformation can occur. This is a mirror of our own inner struggle, the battle between our potential and our fear. Nietzsche once observed, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." The hero archetype is driven by that why, a vision that pulls us through hardship. But without awareness, the hero can be trapped, endlessly fighting battles without understanding the deeper meaning of the struggle. Now consider other archetypes at play within us. The anima and animus, Jung's insight into the balance of inner energies. Within every man lies the anima, the hidden feminine side, symbolizing intuition, creativity, and emotional depth. Within every woman lies the animus, the hidden masculine side representing structure, logic, and assertiveness. These are not about gender in the physical sense, but about wholeness. When anima and animus are rejected, imbalance emerges. When they are integrated, the self feels complete. For example, a man who denies his anima may fear vulnerability, mistaking emotion for weakness. A woman who rejects her animus may hesitate to assert herself, fearing rejection when she claims her power. But when these forces are embraced, they become sources of immense strength. They open doors to authenticity, balance, and deeper connection with the world. Jung believed that individuation requires the integration of all archetypes, the hero, the shadow, the anima, the animus, and many more. It is not about suppressing one for another, but about recognizing the role each plays and allowing them to coexist in harmony. Think of the archetype of the wise old man or woman, the inner guide, the voice of intuition that speaks in dreams or moments of clarity. Think of the innocent child, the part of you that longs for wonder, play, and freedom from judgment. Think of the trickster, the part that disrupts, questions, and refuses to let life remain rigid or predictable. Each has a role. Each holds a lesson. Jung wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries." You are not meant to exile parts of yourself, but to bring them together. Every archetype carries light and shadow, strength and limitation. And when you recognize them within, you stop being ruled by them unconsciously. So ask yourself, which archetypes dominate your life right now? Do you feel caught in the endless battles of the hero? Do you silence your anima or animus, leaving you unbalanced? Do you neglect the innocent child, forgetting how to wonder and play? Or do you fear the trickster, resisting necessary change? These patterns reveal themselves in the stories you are drawn to, the dreams that repeat in your sleep, the roles you find yourself playing again and again. To ignore them is to live unconsciously, repeating cycles you never understand. To face them is to step into clarity, recognizing that your life is not random but shaped by ancient forces moving through you. Philosopher Plato once said, The unexamined life is not worth living. Jung extended this truth into the realm of the unconscious, showing that the unexamined patterns of the psyche keep us trapped in illusions. But once examined, they become keys to transformation. Archetypes remind us that we are more than individuals shaped by personal history. We are also expressions of a larger human story, carrying within us the wisdom, struggles, and symbols of countless generations. To know yourself deeply is to recognize these forces at play, and to integrate them is to move closer to wholeness. The shadow and the archetypes do not exist to limit you. They exist to teach you. When you stop resisting them and start listening, you discover that even your struggles carry meaning, and within that meaning lies the path toward becoming whole. Most people go through life assuming they are a fixed identity. They believe the person they are today is the same one they have always been and will always be. They define themselves by names, roles, jobs, and memories, convinced these labels are their essence. But Carl Jung and many other thinkers revealed a more radical truth. The self is not static. It is fluid, ever-changing, and far greater than the labels we cling to. Jung described the self as more than the ego. The ego is the small voice in your head that says, "This is who I am, and this is who I am not." It builds borders, defines roles, and tries to keep life predictable. But the true self, Jung argued, is much larger. It is the totality of your being, both conscious and unconscious, both light and shadow. This realization is liberating but also frightening, because it means that much of what you thought defined you, your fears, your limitations, even your stories about failure, are not permanent truths. They are temporary constructs, and if they are constructs, they can be changed, reshaped, transcended. Philosopher Heraclitus famously said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man." You are that river, flowing, shifting, transforming. The person you were yesterday is not the same person speaking these words today. To cling to a rigid identity is to resist the natural current of your own becoming. So why do we feel so bound, so limited, so fixed? Because of the ego. The ego's role is to create stability, to provide a sense of continuity. Without it, life would feel chaotic. But the problem comes when the ego convinces you that it is all you are. When you believe its stories, you mistake safety for truth and comfort for freedom. Jung wrote, "The self is not only the center, but the whole circumference which embraces both conscious and unconscious. It is the center of this totality, just as the ego is the center of consciousness." In other words, your ego is not the enemy, but it is only one small part of you. The fullness of who you are includes much more: your forgotten dreams, your suppressed emotions, your hidden potential, and the wisdom of the collective unconscious itself. Consider how often we cling to labels. We say, "I am shy," or "I am ambitious," or "I am unlucky." We repeat these labels until they become cages. But these are not your essence, they are descriptions of patterns, patterns that can shift, evolve, and dissolve when you stop identifying with them completely. Nietzsche once wrote, "Become who you are." He did not mean create a new mask, but uncover the vast self that lies beneath the illusions of ego. The tragedy is that most people never realize they are more than the small identity they defend so fiercely. They live as fragments, mistaking a part of themselves for the whole. But when you loosen your grip on identity, something powerful happens. You begin to experience yourself as larger, more spacious. You stop needing to fit neatly into labels and instead allow yourself to be a process, an unfolding, not a finished product. Ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped saying, "This is just who I am"? What if instead you asked, "Who am I becoming?" That simple shift turns limitation into possibility. It transforms your identity from a prison into a path. This is not about abandoning responsibility or erasing memory. It is about refusing to let your past define your future completely. It is about seeing identity as fluid, dynamic, and alive. Jung reminded us that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires us to embrace change, to accept that we are not static beings but living, evolving selves. And the more you surrender to this truth, the freer you become. So remember this: you are not a fixed identity trapped in one story. You are an unfolding process, a river in motion, a vast consciousness exploring itself through time. And every time you release the illusion of permanence, you step closer to the freedom of becoming. To live fully is not to erase the shadow, nor to cling blindly to the persona, nor to defend the ego as if it were the whole of who you are. It is to recognize every layer of yourself, light and dark, conscious and unconscious, strength and fear, and to allow them to exist together in harmony. This is what Carl Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole. Jung wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries." Freedom does not come from pretending your wounds are gone, or from hiding your doubts beneath motivation. It comes from meeting them honestly, from listening to what they have to teach, and from choosing not to be ruled by them. The shadow once feared becomes a teacher. Your suppressed emotions reveal the truths you must face. Your fears point toward the places where growth is waiting. Your flaws expose hidden strengths, humility, sensitivity, the courage to question. What once seemed like enemies in the dark become guides when you dare to bring them into the light. The archetypes, once unconscious, become sources of wisdom. The hero reminds you of purpose. The anima and animus offer balance. The child restores wonder. The wise guide whispers intuition. They are not external myths but living forces within you. To ignore them is to live unconsciously, but to integrate them is to move with clarity and strength. And the self, once mistaken for a fixed identity, reveals itself as vast and fluid. Not the small ego clinging to labels, but the whole, the conscious, the unconscious, the personal, and the collective all woven together. You are not a static definition, you are a process of becoming. You are not trapped in a single story, you are the author of many. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Your why is not given by society, nor by the roles others assign you. It emerges when you accept all that you are, when you stop performing for approval and begin listening to the deeper call of your own being. To live authentically is to risk misunderstanding. It is to accept that not everyone will approve of you, that not everyone will follow you into your growth. But Jung reminded us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that privilege cannot be earned by hiding behind masks. It can only be claimed by daring to step forward, whole and unafraid. Philosopher Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." Bravery here is not about conquest or domination. It is about the courage to face yourself, to walk into the depths of your unconscious, to integrate the shadow, to balance the archetypes, and to release the illusions of a fixed identity. This is the freedom that no approval, no status, and no possession can give you. So ask yourself, what would it mean to live as a whole being, not divided against yourself? What would it mean to speak with your true voice, unburdened by fear of rejection? What would it mean to live not as a fragment, but as a complete person who accepts the chaos, the doubt, the beauty, and the strength within? True freedom is not the absence of fear but the refusal to be ruled by it. It is not perfection but authenticity. It is not becoming someone else but finally remembering who you are. Life does not begin when the world validates you. It begins when you validate yourself. When you accept your shadow, honor your archetypes, and embrace your fluid, evolving self, you step into a life that is truly yours. And in that moment, you realize that you were never lost. You were always here, waiting to be remembered, waiting to be lived.